So I'll start it right away so that you can see. Parth, Amol, and Akshay, I request you to just make sure that participants are admitted. You just have to click on participants, open that window where you can see the waiting room and allow the participants to enter the room.
Yes, sir. We are doing that.
Yeah. Great.
Sir, can we go live?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
The meeting is live streaming on YouTube.
Thank you, Rohit.
Yeah.
Ma'am, then with your permission, with your and Professor Dr. Kharat's permission, should we begin the session?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Participants already and others
Yes, yes. Thank you very much. So good evening all. This is Dr. Sachin Labde and I welcome you to the inaugural day of the webinar series on International Research Fellowships and Grants organized by the Internal Quality Assurance Cell, University of Mumbai, in collaboration with the Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute's University Center. We are honored to be joined by Honorable Dean, Faculty of Humanities, a prolific social researcher and scientist, Professor Dr. Rajesh Kharat. Sir, a very warm welcome. Yeah. I also welcome today's speaker, Professor Dr. Mala Panduran, who is Ambassador Scientist to India, Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, Germany, and Professor of English, as well as Principal, Dr. BMN College, Mumbai. Warm welcome, ma'am. And we are very pleased to inform you that more than 170 researchers and colleagues from various universities across India and colleges have registered for today's webinar, and many of them have joined us in this meeting room. I hope in 5 to 10 minutes, rest of them also will be joining. Now I request my colleague and the IQAC coordinator, Dr. Smita Shukla, to share the introductory remarks. Dr. Smita Shukla.
Thank you, Dr. Sachin. To begin with, I'd like to say that whenever we talk about quality parameters, specifically in academic environment, that quality is first and foremost is tested by the kind of academic input and output the university is generating. So the promotion of research, how much grants have been won by university and the teachers of the university become very, very important parameters. So that's an important parameter under NAAC criteria 3 when you refer to NBA. Again, it's a very important quality parameter. In NIRF ranking, the publications which are created, produced by the university as well as teachers of the university, the amount of grants which have been won by university teachers, all are very important parameters of assessing the quality of institution. And in this regard, when Dr. Sachin interacted with me and he suggested that can we do this as a joint IQAC and Shastri Indo-Canadian Center program, I said yes. And I think if I'm not wrong, this is for the first time that in university we are trying to cover multiple international fellowship programs and trying to sensitize faculty as well as the students about these programs, because this is a feeling and a fact also that in case there is a greater awareness, possibly there is also going to be a greater participation in such kind of grants. And I'm happy to say that we have been able to now kind of curate for all the faculty members of the university, affiliated colleges, other colleges of possibly other parts of India, as well as researchers which are part of University of Mumbai and other institution. A webinar series we have been able to curate for you all, where on 3 days starting from today we will be discussing 3 international opportunities. Today the discussion will be on Humboldt research opportunity. Tomorrow we will be talking about Fulbright, where experienced teachers who have won previously the Fulbright grant and fellowship will be coming in. And on the day 3, specifically we will be focusing on Shastri Indo-Canadian Center grants, which are available to the member institutions. All the 3 days we have the guests joining in who are who actually have won these fellowships and scholarships. So today we have Professor Mala Pandurang. Already Sachin has kind of given her introduction. I welcome Madam. Tomorrow we will be having Dr. Baliram Gaikwad, and in addition to that, Dr. Paromita Chakrabarti. Then day 3, in fact, Dr. Prachi Kaul herself, she will be participating. She is a director of Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute. In addition to that, our ex-colleague, Dr. Sudha Mohan, and a student who has won one such grant, Ms. Anmol Datta, will be joining in. So I believe that this interaction will be useful and kind of also represents what IQAC of the University of Mumbai and also what the intent of Shastri Indo-Canadian Center is. And I'm extremely happy that on a very short notice when I requested Professor Kharath that, sir, can you give the inaugural address and also encourage the participants to apply for such kind of grants. He very quickly accepted. So sir, welcome and welcome all the participants. 150 plus registrations were there and we are expecting that all will be joining in soon. Thank you, Dr. Sachin. Over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. As ma'am rightly said, that we've been honored to have our Honorable Dean, Professor Dr. Kharath, who very at the 11th hour, consented to, be part of this inaugural session and address the participating researchers and colleagues. We are very glad that, sir, you have joined us. I must share one thing that since Professor Dr. Kharath has joined the university as dean, he has really activated, motivated, a lot of research and academic activities. Be it the very interesting and unique bilingual journal that we have, that is Sambhashan. And also recently it has become trilingual because Hindi also has been added to this. And very soon we are likely to begin with the newsletter for the university. So thank you very much for all these initiatives, and we are looking forward to hearing the words of wisdom from you. So I request Honorable Dean, Professor Dr. Kharath, to please address the gathering. Professor Kharath.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Sachin, Professor Smita Madam, IQAC, as well as the India Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute, and all the colleagues from the university, Mumbai University, and then the colleges, and all the recipients, the winners of the various scholarships. It's indeed my privilege to be here as a part of this program at the last hour. Because what I thought initially, it is just like a program where somebody will come and have some discussion. It is just like a monologue kind of things, but it seems there should be a discussion, and the winners or the participants, they are going to share their own experiences during this webinar. So I really congratulate both the institutions, both the heads of these institutions for organizing this kind of seminar. Let me share a few things about these fellowships and scholarships. Generally, the universities are made for the research. Their thrust area is research. But somehow, somewhere, I found it somewhere in Maharashtra or in the Mumbai University, it was lacking. And then I found it, it is almost since last few years, I think it is taking a leap towards going for the research, maybe with the help of the IQAC or the various different departments individually. But it is not being reflected as a university. And I think that is a big task. I think IQAC and the your organization or the institute, Indo-Canadian Institution, is taking a step further. This is a really good opportunity, or one can say the stepping stone for bringing all those people who are also aspirants, to achieve or to get this fellowship and do whatever they want to do, what is in their mind as a research. This is the one thing. Secondly, the research culture in India is diminishing or decaying, maybe because of the inadequate resources, because we are not able to get the ample resources, either it is Indian Council for Social Science Research, CSR, or various organizations, or basically the nodal agencies like University Grant Commission. They have cut down the various scholarships and fellowship to travel abroad. Generally, the Ministry of HRD to have in Shastri Bhavan, they have a Commonwealth Fellowship, then visiting so many other countries. There are different quotas also for the different, not only communities, but the different faculties. Okay, that is also I have not seen many people are using. Maybe it has become very Delhi centric, but somehow I have realized Mumbai also getting those things. Pune, of course, they have the separate international collaboration office and they have the so many agreements with the various universities. But somehow we are not able to reach to that level where the Pune University is there in the Western India. We should go or gradually towards that milestone. But this is a one thing. I thought this is a very, very good opportunity for those people. Then how to promote this, how we are going to achieve these things. So I think once you decide what kind of thrust area you decide and throw it to the donor agencies, because generally what happens, you can say as the limitations of the donor agencies also. Donor agencies, they have their own agenda, and we generally carry forward those agenda with the help of the data collector, or we are providers of the particular data, or sometimes we go and analyze that, and then the final call or the final call of analysis on the policy implementation on based on that data, is that final right is with the donor agency. Somehow if you could bring that posture or that location to us with the international collaboration offices or these donor agencies, this will be wonderful, because this is going to help us for our country, as well as India can contribute massively to the rest of the world with the help of this kind of fellowship. So these are the few challenges, few tasks ahead we should also address, and we should not become like a part of the compartment which are carried by a bogie, particularly bogie, and we are going towards endless journey. We don't know, because this was happening during the 60s and 70s, and particularly if you survey about the role of the fellowship and scholarships during the Cold War period. Maximum the Cold War period, the scholarships were given to either by the Indians or to the Pakistanis, because the Cold War was focused on South Asia. So now there is no Cold War, no India, Pakistan, that kind of things. What are their motives? Maybe they have the areas like environment, energy concern, about this energy, environment, and there are so many other things like a water crisis, particularly the Nordic countries. They are floating a lot of scholarships. But I don't find anybody is really working on the water issues in this side. Though we have the coastal community, coastal area, hardly anybody is working in the Australia or Indo-Pacific region, and there are some scholarships. I think you can a little bit drift away from this monotonous or the very conventional fellowship, bring all those fellowship into the Mumbai or into this area through the IQAC or through the Shastri Indo-Canadian Institution, and give more and more opportunity to the students who are literally thinking, because there is no dearth of the brain or the ideas. The only thing is how you channelize. This is one of the source to channelize all these ideas okay, and thoughts. And once again, I thank and congratulate all of you for having this kind of exercise. But what I thought about this fellowship and scholarship, just I have shared. Thank you once again.
So thank you very much for your words of wisdom. And as you rightly pointed out, that there is this gap that we need to address. And you rightly, since it's your experience and you also have been recipient of various fellowships, you've worked on various international projects. So it's the right time for us to take a call on this and identify these issues and start collaborating with various international agencies, various international institutes. So thank you very much for your inspiring words, and I'm sure all of us will take a note of this and will work on this. And Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute's center has always been of this opinion that maximum benefit should come to the researchers and colleagues from the University of Mumbai, it being as member institute or University of Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute. So thank you once again. Thank you very much. Now, without staying between the participants and the guest speaker today, who is going to enlighten us on the opportunities that we have at Humboldt Foundation's fellowships. I'll now hand over the floor to my colleague from the Department of Civics and Politics, Dr. Sanhita Joshi, who would be moderating this session. Sanhita, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sachin. Thank you, Dr. Shukla, and also thank the Honorable Dean, Dr. Kharat, for giving me this opportunity. And I also don't want to come in the way of this entire discussion. So we shall quickly move towards that. First, let me briefly introduce our speaker today for our participants. While I was reading it, it is an honor to even read this kind of a checkered, career and a checkered bio. So Dr. Mala Pandurang, who is a professor as well as a principal at Dr. BMN College, which is an autonomous college. She is a postdoctoral fellow of Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, Germany, and has been also nominated as an ambassador scientist to India for the year 2019-2022. She has also availed a short research grant visit to universities of Hamburg, Augsburg, Frankfurt, Potsdam, Chemnitz through the sponsorship of Alexander von Humboldt Foundation. It's a big list. It is a real inspiration when we read such bios. Her research grants include Fulbright visiting professor at University of Texas at Austin, recipient of Charles Wallace in UK research grant. She's also been a recipient of major research grants and 3 minor research grants from University Grants Commission, New Delhi. She was also a recipient of INLAC Fellowship in Social Sciences from Asiatic Society. She also received associateship at the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla, and such other many esteemed fellowships she has received. Under her tenure, Dr. BMN College has been selected as a UGC Stride Center for Research Capacity Building for the year 2020 and 2023. Her areas of research particularly include post-colonial writing, diaspora theory, and gender studies. And all 3 of them are highly interesting and so very relevant when we look at these research areas. She has published over 7 books and 40 research papers. And in 2012, she received the SNDT Women's University's Maharshi Karve Utkarsha Shikshak Puraskar, that is a best teacher award from the Governor of Maharashtra. It's an honor to have you with us, ma'am, and we are looking forward to your experiences and your ideas which you're going to share with us. Floor is open for you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Sanhita, and thanks, Dr. and Dr. Sachin, for the invitation to be here this evening and to talk to you about research possibilities for experienced researchers from the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation. Just give me a minute. I will just share my screen. Is this clear to everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So once again, thank you so much for the invitation to be here and to speak about the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation. I would like to use this opportunity to share my positive experiences and extremely enriching journey which I have had through my association with the foundation. And I'm really particularly keen to share these experiences with all of you also are the same. A small little disclaimer before I proceed. I am not a direct staff of the foundation, and therefore I will not be in a position to answer any specific questions as to whether you will really get the grant or not, or to come whether you are really eligible or not. But what I can do is I can share information with you directly to the Humboldt Foundation's website and enable you to get in touch in Germany, and that person will definitely take the conversation ahead. And contact details of the website, I will give it to you at the end of my presentation. As you can see, the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, or the AVH, leading scholars. I'm not sure as to how many of you familiar with the name of Alexander von Humboldt. His biography actually is the founding stone of the whole idea of knowledge transfer and cooperation at the highest level. Alexander von Humboldt was a discoverer, a cosmopolitan, traveler, patron scientific talent, who literally traveled across the span of the globe and wrote extensively about his travels and about his work. And as a tribute to his contribution to scientific culture, the German government established the Humboldt Foundation in 1953. Its headquarters are in Bonn in Germany. And over the years has built up an amazing network of academic cooperation and trust inspired by Humboldt's example of cosmopolitanism and scientific cooperation among people from across the globe. The main areas of the foundation that the foundation focuses on is sponsorship of international academics as part of a foreign cultural and educational policy. Internationalization, which is absolutely essential if we are going to have cutting edge research. And as we know, especially through the COVID pandemic, collaboration has become a very essential part of any kind of research that is happening. Certain principles of the foundation, which I would like to stress upon, because this is what makes the grants that are given by the foundation a little different than grants that you may get from other agencies or other foundations. The sole selection criteria to get a grant, a postdoctoral grant from the foundation, is academic excellence. Okay? There are no quotas for countries or disciplines. What this means is there is no limitation as to how many grants are given per country or how many grants are given per discipline. It's open. As long as you are found to be qualified and you are found to meet the mark, you have a very good chance of getting the grant. A very, very important point that has to be stressed upon is that the foundation believes in sponsorship of people and not projects. Therefore, you are taken on the basis of your resume that you have built up as a researcher, the contribution that you have given to your area of research, And the grant is not given on the basis of a specific project that is announced by the foundation. Many foundations have the practice of announcing particular areas of research for specific periods of time, and you have to send in a proposal as per that project. As far as the Humboldt Foundation is concerned, they leave the project open. It is your credentials as a researcher that you have to establish. And therefore, there is a free choice of research topic and also of academic host and collaborative partner in Germany. In effect, this means that you get to choose what you want to work on, and you also get to choose who you would wish to work with and which university or which particular institute you would like to work at. This is again important to understand in the sense that it's not limited to specific universities or specific areas or specific institutes. A lot of emphasis is placed on equal opportunities for female academics in order to build, to kind of close the gap of gender disparity. Because the foundation has observed that female academics who are applying for fellowships become significantly lower and drops with a higher stage of career. And geographical origin also plays an important role. So, for example, women applying for postdoctorals becomes much less than those who are applying for doctoral projects. Some particular opportunities that are given for female academics is that the fellowship can be extended if you give birth during the approved sponsorship period. You can extend your sponsorship period if you have to take maternity leave. Women are allowed to interrupt the fellowship period for up to 8 months if the birth of a child occurs. Married research fellows, their spouses will get a marital allowance if your accompanying spouse does not have any income of his or her own. Children under 18 will be allowed to accompany the mother. And in many cases, child benefit will also be given to young children, because with women, this is something that often stops women from pursuing projects when they have families to look after. So child benefits will also be given to deserving women candidates. And what is very unique about the foundation is there is targeted counseling and provision of information. You will get one contact person who will see you through the application process, your travel arrangements, your arrival in Germany, your settling into your host academic institution at Germany. And this one person will be your mentor throughout your stay there. And this is a tremendous kind of emotional support that the foundation gives. This is just a brief idea of the extent of funding that is available from the foundation. The funding for 2019, the budget was approximately 142.7 million euros. What about research locations in Germany? As I said, you may choose where exactly you wish to go in Germany. There are a number of universities, a number of institutions that are spread all over the country. And therefore, one could always do a little bit of homework and find out which location might be most suitable to you, and in terms of libraries, in terms of further work that you would like to do. There are approximately 100 universities offering research in all disciplines. I know that the Mumbai University has various MOUs with German universities, and you must be well aware of this, that almost every German city has its own university. So the possibilities are immense of a university that you can try to locate. Several of the Humboldt Fellows go in for the sciences. And one of the things that the foundation likes to stress is that they do offer grants for those from humanities and social sciences. The number of applicants is much less than the sciences. And I myself, my area of specialization is literature. And so this has not stopped me from availing of the facilities of the foundation. I've put up a list of possible institutes here, but for those of you who are from the humanities and social sciences, there's a possibility of applying at the universities. You have the Max Planck Institutes, which have also opened research grants in humanities and social sciences, and various other institutes that one could also explore. What are the research fellowships that are available for experienced researchers? What I would like to stress here is that these are only postdoctoral fellowships. Humboldt does not offer research fellowships for those at doctoral level. But what is important is that if you are currently doing your PhD, you could keep some of these parameters in mind so that you prepare yourself sufficiently and you are ready and you're in a position when it comes to applying for this a fellowship. Okay. Okay. As I said, this is a global competition. It's very competitive, so it's open to academics from across the globe. There are more than 700 research fellowships and awards that are given annually, and different sponsorship options for different career stages. And I'll just walk you through some of the career stages as we go along, and individual and personal mentoring for you once you are sponsored. These sponsorship programs at a glance. As I said, that first of all, you have to be in the postdoctoral stage. So up to 4 years after completion of doctorate. Now, a question that you may ask is, what is the age limit? Earlier, there was an age limit, but they have realized from geographical location to different geographic locations and different cultural contexts, people may be completing their doctoral degree at a later age. So they have changed the entry point. Up to 4 years of completion, you can apply for the Humboldt Research Fellowship. There is also the Georg Foster Research Fellowship. It's not applicable to India because India is no longer considered to be a developing country. Then there is a Junior Research Group Leaders up to 6 years of completion of doctorate, which is very prestigious. You become a team leader, and I'll show you the details a little later on. Experienced researchers up to 12 years of completion of your doctorate. Then up to 15 years after completion of doctorate, and up to 18 years of completion of doctorate. You also have what is known as the internationally renowned academics, which are very prestigious grants, but this is only through nomination. There is no direct application. Most of the information that I'm giving you here is available on the Humboldt website, and I will be sharing the URL with all of you, and you may also contact me if you require any further information. The duration of the sponsorships for the postdoctoral, that's up to 4 years, is you can apply for a grant anyway from 6 to 24 months, but 6 months is the minimum requirement that you have to be in Germany. Another question that often comes up, is this only for Germany? Yes, you have to be based in Germany. It does not support research in any other location. Now, experienced researchers can be from 6 to 18 months. This can be divided up to 3 stages. Postdoctoral researchers, applications at any time, doctorates who completed less than 4 years ago. The fellowship amount is around 2,650 euros per month, and additional benefits could include things like conference costs, your travel fare from India to and back, and child benefits. Experienced researchers, application anytime completed less than 12 years ago, and 3,150 euros per month. The scale that is given to you is on par with your colleagues in German universities. So there is no disparity there as to what you will receive and your German colleagues would receive. This may be of interest to the university because the Humboldt also sponsors German fellows who would wish to come and locate themselves in Indian universities. Again, it is worldwide, there are no quotas. A Humboldt member can act as a host, and there is some host contribution which would have to be given from the host university, but that can be negotiated from university to university. Okay. What are your application requirements and benefits? Number one, an above average doctorate. Many universities now have started to give you grades for your PhD thesis, but if your university does not, then you would have to have some sort of documentation or reference letters or letters from referees, kind of explaining why they consider your doctorate to be above average. Academic publications of quality. Now, once again, please keep in mind, this is not the API ban where people are collecting publications and just adding up the numbers because they want to show they've published so many papers in a year. These are qualitative academic publications in recognized peer-reviewed journals, journals that have a good impact factor. They'll be looking for things like H-index. So you'll have to be very careful as to where you publish. And hence, if you're doing your doctorate now and you plan to apply for this after a few years, please start working on the publications because you're expected to send off prints of your publications when you apply. So your publications will be scrutinized very carefully. An agreement by the host, the academic host. So what you would have to do is you will have to do a little homework. You will have to find out possible universities where you can perhaps tie up with someone, write to them, explain what you would like to do, have a proposal ready, and your host has to write back and say that they will be happy to host you. This is something that is absolutely essential if you're applying for a Humboldt grant. This is not really too difficult at an initial stage to do your homework, because once you have a proposal and you find out that there are people in the areas that you're working with and you contact them, most German universities will be very happy to host a Humboldt Fellow because it is very prestigious for them and there's no additional cost to their university. Your research proposal has to be very strong, of course. Your research proposal has to be written as a proposal should. A lot of homework has to go into it. We're not here, I know, to talk about how research proposals have to be read, but this is an area that Indian academics and Indian research scholars really need to work at. How do you make a proposal that is professional, that is absolutely tight, and that shows that you are actually qualified and you've done sufficient homework to work in this particular area. Knowledge of German and or English. Germany has changed. Germany has become extremely globalized. For sciences, knowledge of German is no longer mandatory, but for humanities and for social sciences, it depends on the area that you're working. For example, my own area was Anglistic English. I had absolutely no problem at all. I could complete my entire grant period without working in German at all. But if you do get the fellowship, you will be given a totally sponsored 2 months German program, German language course in Berlin at the Goethe Institute, which is excellent, which will help you with your day-to-day communication and your basic German. Now for experienced researchers, that is from 6 years upwards, you should have shown that you've had some sort of academic activity, that you have been teaching. Okay? The question may arise that if I'm now in a grant self-finance institution, you can still apply because you're showing that you do have academic activity. A comprehensive list of academic publications, of course, a little more detailed than the postdoctoral researcher at the initial stage. And the other 3 remain the same. You need to have an agreement by an academic host. This is very important. Applications can be made to the foundation directly. You need not send it. You need not inward it through any other organization or institution. You can write to the foundation directly. There has to be an assessment by independent peer reviewer. So once you have sent your application to the foundation, it will be sent to at least 2 or 3 peer reviewers. There will be an independent selection committee. And so the duration process normally takes between 4 to 7 months before you get an answer for them, but you will definitely get an answer from them. once again, I know that there are many from Mumbai University who have gone on academic visits to Germany, and I'm sure you'll agree with me that when it comes to correspondence, it comes to replying, it comes to answering the German academics and the Germans are extremely prompt in seeing that any correspondence that you get, just get immediate response. As I said, the fellowship benefits, the fellowship amount, the travel amount, your language course will be paid for, there are benefits for families, and also your host institute will be paid a certain amount for whatever facilities that you will be using while you're at the host institute. You will have intensive and individual mentoring. There will be study tours, networking, annual meetings that will be conducted there. There are also return fellowships and alumni sponsorship. As was mentioned when my bio note was read out, after returning back to India, I have gone on at least 5 return alumni sponsorships because the Humboldt believes that this is a networking for life. Once you're a Humboldt fellow, you're a Humboldt fellow for life. Okay? They ensure that the networking continues and that there are ample opportunities for you to take ahead whatever you had started off when you were in Germany. Okay? How do you look for a host? Again, this information can be shared, but there are various ways. There is the Humboldt Foundation's network online, where you have the host institutions and you can search by subject area, location, or keyword, which may help you to kind of shortlist the institutions. Say you're working on an area like culture studies, or you're working like an area on migration, you're working on migration and gender, you use a combination of this, and this will help you to hone down on which areas, which host institutes you could possibly approach. There is a Euraccess Germany website, which again gives assistance in finding an academic host. The GERIT, the German research institutions, almost 25,000 institutes at German universities, which allow searchers geographical, field-related, and structural criteria. And if you have colleagues who have been in Germany, Humboldtians, Dart scholars, people who have been there on MOUs signed by your university, you could always talk with them and try to build up this kind of information of how do I find a host in Germany. As you can see here, the overall, this is international. I'll come to the Indian figures a little later after 2 or 3 slides. Almost 25% internationally. Research fellowships are granted to those from humanities and social sciences. So it is a misconception that people have in India that these are grants that are meant only for those from the life sciences, engineering sciences, and natural sciences. I'll just walk you through this a little fast, because this is exclusively by nomination. These are extremely prestigious grants, but you will have to be nominated from the German side. The Humboldt Research Award for 60,000 euros, the Frederick Wilhelm Bessel Research Award, 45,000 euros for an entire, you'll be entirely independent to work on whichever project you would like to. This is for the junior academics, where you will be given a grant where you can build up your own team. Okay? Let me stress here the focus, if you're from social sciences and from humanities, even from the life sciences, the focus has to be interdisciplinary, it has to be multidisciplinary. This is very, very important when you're putting your proposal together, to try to make it as interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary as possible. Okay? Then you have the Alexander von Humboldt Professorship, again exclusively by nomination. There are 2 new programs that have been introduced. One is the German Chancellor Fellowship, and these are not for those, not necessarily postdoctorals. There are 10 scholarships that are given every year. This is open now. This has a last date. All the postdoctoral fellowships, you can apply at any time of the year, but the last date for this is September. Again, it can be from a wide area, such as politics, public policy, law, media, business, non-governmental sector, arts. You need to have a host. What are the minimum qualifications, bachelor's or equivalent academic degree? You have to show that you have leadership potential through your resume, build up your resume, and it is a 12-month fellowship in Germany, including language course, introductory seminar, study trip, reception at the Federal Chancellery, lump sum, and family allowances. These are for those who would like to apply from the natural sciences, the engineering, again, humanities, binational interdisciplinary conferences for young researchers. Self-nomination is not possible. You'll have to be nominated from the German side. There is also the Indo-German Frontiers of Engineering Symposia with the Indian ST. And as I said, once a Humboldt, you're in the Humboldt for life. I've had this experience. I've also been a Fulbright visiting professor, but the difference between the Fulbright and the Humboldt is that you have a number of return research possibilities and networking with the Humboldt. Humboldt Colloquias, Alumni Association. There is also a publication grant if you wish to publish what you have put together during your research stay. And there is the online network for the family members of the Humboldt Foundation. I'll just give you some facts and figures about the Humboldt Foundation in India. As you see here, there are around 3,059 research fellowships that were granted in this period of 2014-2018. 28% of these fellowships were from India. But you can see the distribution from India as far as social sciences and humanities is there. It is hardly 3%, as compared to the 25% worldwide distribution. Now, although I said 27% are from Asia, sorry, 29% from Asia, you will see here that the new research fellows, 29% from Asia, but only 6% from India. And this is something of concern to the Humboldt the Humboldt Foundation, because they understand and they realize that Indian researchers are no less than their compatriots across the world. But perhaps it is that the Humboldt Foundation is not that well known, or perhaps people have not understood the procedure for applying for the grants, or how to go about contacting a host and taking it from there. So I am sure that with more people showing interest, hopefully this number of 6% from India will go up in the coming few years. You've also had the number of German fellows who have been in India. There is a Humboldt network in India. Every 8th application for the fellowship comes from India. Okay? Every 8th application is from India, but unfortunately, if you see the statistics here, that in 2008, there were 217 applications from India, only 42 went through. And 2019, there were 216 applications, but only 41 went through. Now this most probably is because Indian academicians have not really understood the process. Okay? The process of building up your resume, ensuring that you have qualitative publications, working on a research proposal before you apply to your host, and being very professional about applying for a host. For example, if you write to a German professor and say, dear sir, I am currently from the University of Mumbai. I wish to work in the area of migration studies. And I would like to know whether you're interested, will not get a reply. Okay? You will have to be very specific about the area you want to work in, how you want to go about doing it, what is the groundwork that you have done, and the proposal has to go with the applications. I will also urge you to look at the websites, find out who are the faculty there, find out the areas in which they have worked in, address the professor by name, okay? So that you show you have done homework about that particular person's background and qualification to work with you in a project. I would also urge you, please do not send out multiple copies of the same email to people over and over again, because the person would understand that any person who does not do sufficient homework at the preliminary stage of application is not likely to do enough homework when you actually get the project going. And they're not going to tell you things like what you have to do, how you're going to go about doing. You have to keep in mind that you are going to be colleagues with your host. Your host is not going to be your guide. You're going to work along with your colleague. So you will have to see that you are sufficiently informed about what you want to do and convey that you are very confident and you know exactly what you would like to do. These are the top institutions. I would really like to see Indian universities here because we have some excellent researchers at the universities, and hopefully in the future we see that universities offering different disciplines are also in this list. Okay. Prominent Indian Humboldtians, some names have been put up. Okay. The director of ISER, the director of Indian Statistical Institute, the director of IIT Mumbai, the secretary of DST, just to name a few. There are almost 31 Humboldt fellows who have received Nobel Prizes in various disciplines. The Humboldt Foundation has completed 250 years of its existence. It is celebrating the 250th birth anniversary of Alexander von Humboldt this year. So it's a very important year for the foundation. And finally, this is a bit of information that you might want to look up. You could write to the foundation with any queries that you have. I will share this with Sachin, the website details, where whatever you would wish to find, you will find on the website. This particular PPT that I have shared with you is available on the website also, so you can refer to it there. There is a Twitter account, there is a YouTube account also. And as the ambassador scientist, I will also be very happy to direct you to people in the foundation who can take it up from there as to whether you will really be eligible or not to take your work further. So on this note, I would just like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to speak with you. I would also like to state that around 20 years ago, I was also a young researcher. I was also wondering how to go about in building up my research career. This particular foundation opened doors from me, it opened tremendous opportunities. But I would also like to urge young researchers, because we have observed increasingly that publications is something that has to be taken very, very seriously. It is not the quantity of publications, but it is the quality. Often when I have gone for selection committee interviews, or when I have gone for interviews of candidates for various jobs at colleges and universities, teachers have say with pride that I have published 10 articles this year and I published 12 articles this year. If it is really going to undergo serious peer review, you'll have to ask yourself that, can you really publish so many articles in a year? And are people really reviewing your articles if they get back to you immediately and say that they're going to go ahead and publish it? I know that the UGC has come up with the CARE list, but I would also urge you to scrutinize the quality of the journals on the CARE list, whether they are listed in international databases, because this is also very, very important. So on that note, again, thank you very much for the invitation to speak to you this evening. And I would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mala, for such a vast presentation which covered almost all areas of how to apply for the fellowship, what will be the eligibility criteria, and what preparation actually as a research scholar we must do before applying for such scholarship. And I'm sure that it's a challenge for young researchers because there are many areas which still are new to us and we have to learn in that process. However, there are various questions which were given by participants already who had registered, and most of those questions you have answered in your presentation. But there were 2 or 3 aspects which I found that maybe I can ask on behalf of the participants who have registered their questions. And then there are some questions which are appearing in the chat,
Okay.
which I will, take. So the first question, very important question that we hear many times about many scholarships and grants, but we hardly come to know about it. So how can one know the availability of such research grants? That's the question which one participant has asked.
I think that the IQAC under Dr. Shukla's guidance has taken a very good step in creating these sort of orientations so that people within the university get to know. But there are also many networks, there are many online groups, there are many platforms to advertise the international fellowships that are being offered. It is extremely important to network, but also to network with people of academic competence. So for example, if you go to a seminar that is of really organized, where you have people who are very serious about what they are presenting and the work that they have done, and then you meet people and you talk with them and you get to find out about opportunities from people who are already into research. So this is also one way in which they can go about doing this.
Okay, there's one important question given by a participant, that are ad hoc faculties eligible for grants?
As far as Alexander von Humboldt is concerned, I would say yes, because they do not look at you in terms of what is your institution or what is your institutional affiliation, or are you attached to any particular university or college. Okay? In fact, if you change your institution, you are still eligible to continue being a Humboldt Fellow. I don't think that being an ad hoc faculty would stay in the way of anybody who is applying. They are not really interested in knowing which institute are you from. They are interested in knowing your quality, your qualifications. Are you a competent researcher? Okay? That is their main baseline consideration.
There's in the chat box, there's one question by Dr. Sujit. I will just read out the question for you. What are the contours of academic excellence grades in various exams count more, or the research credentials in terms of publications and projects completed?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sujit, and hello. It's nice to meet here. I can see there are lots of people who I'm meeting, who I do know. You know, your question is interesting because we have unfortunately started to define academic excellence in terms of grades. Okay? Okay. Academic excellence, gets reflected through the quality of your publication. It gets reflected through the quality of your proposal. The Humboldt is really not going to look at the grades that you have got at postgraduate level. Okay? They will want to know that, yes, do you have a doctorate that is of quality? But I think that the moment you submit a paper, you know, it's like, I think when you see a diamond, you can recognize which is a diamond and which is glass. Okay? And I think you really have to work on your quality of your papers, because this will be sent to them before they actually, and I'd just like to point out here, they really don't have an interview system. Okay? They go by your publications, they go by your proposal, your German host. And I tell this from experience because Germans are very, very particular about quality and accountability. And they also go by trust, and they will trust the fact that if your host says that you are capable, you are qualified, they will also go by what your host has to say about, once your host accepts you, then they will assume that your host has also scrutinized your credentials in terms of your research credentials. And this is why I'm really urging, especially for those who are at doctorate level, to ensure that you have at least 3 or 4 qualitative publications. Because if you said publications that don't meet a mark, you're not even going to go to the second stage of the selection process. I hope this answers your question.
Ma'am, in the
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
in continuation of what you just said, I also, want to add one question here, that when we, as young researchers, we want to publish, right? Most important aspect that you also mentioned in your speech, that you look for the impact factor of the publishing agency or the journal, and it also should be counted in terms of your H index. So, ma'am, I'm sure all others will benefit if you can just elaborate on that part. How to ensure that this particular journal has a good impact factor, and this will definitely add to our H index. Just to add few things here, that we search generally articles on Web of Sciences or Scopus, preferably, these are valid search engines, and probably to some extent Google Scholar as well. And if your articles are reflected on such search engines, then only probably elaborate on that aspect.
Yeah, one thing is, of course, this would require an entire session on its own. But a citation index would basically be how many times have articles from that particular journal been cited over and over again, which shows that that journal is an important reference point for people working in that area. Okay? So if I'm published, for example, in the Journal of South Asian Diaspora, okay, and South Asian Diaspora has a good citation index, okay, this would mean that I am publishing in a journal that people go to when they want to do their research. Okay? Whereas my H index would reflect as to how many times have I been cited from a particular article. Okay? Now, from those from humanities, especially for languages, we all know that impact factor cannot be very high. It's not like the sciences. Okay? So if that is cited, for example, in Scopus, for example, it comes up. Okay? Also what I would like to say is that I understand that people are publishing qualitative articles in maybe journals that do not come in this range. Okay? But still, when you send your article and you say, this is paper that I've written, the person, the peer reviewer who's reading it, okay, should say that, okay, maybe it's not published in a journal that's cited on humanities or science index or whatever, but I'm reading it and I can recognize. I'll give you a small example: editing, okay, proofreading, okay, typo errors, style sheet. Okay. If you pick up journals, many journals that are published under the UGC CARE, okay, and they tell you that yes, we are peer reviewed your journal, and we have a citation, we have an impact factor and all that. But when you start reading that, you realize that the journal hasn't taken care at all. Then this becomes a reflection on you, that you've chosen to publish in that journal. It also becomes a reflection on the journal. Okay? A really good journal would take a lot of trouble. This is professionalism. And I would like to stress this particularly to Indian researchers who are applying for these sort of grants. English may not be our first language, but get it proofread and get it checked by someone who's competent in the language, because this shows lack of professionalism. Okay. The smallest typo, especially when you're applying to Germany, I'm speaking from experience, they're very particular, because they say carelessness is a reflection of your professionalism. And if you cannot be professional enough to check what you're sending us, how will you be professional later on? And so it requires you to be, to find out, talk with people, which would be a good journal, and then start working towards publishing in that particular journal. I'm not sure, did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think yes,
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
And I'm sure others also have got a few ideas from it.
Yeah.
There are a couple of other questions which I see in the chat box. Chat box is one question is regarding from Mr. Vishwambhar about age limit, but I guess you have answered.
Yeah,
Is there any age limit? And one more question by the same person is, are the government servants eligible for the fellowship?
Government service in the sense that someone who's not working in a university.
Might be unmuted. Just unmute himself or herself.
I think,
We can avoid
Dr.
this.
Ananya I think Dr. Ananya Thatte, yeah, she is muted.
You are eligible to apply for the fellowship if you have a doctorate, if you can show that you have a good academic background, that you can come up with a good project that you'd like to work on, and if you also have some teaching experience, you have some, the senior research, okay? You have to show that you have some academic experience also. So you've had that experience in the past, but you're not necessarily working, you're independent. Now there are lots of people who do freelance independent research. Okay? So then you're eligible to apply. But I think that one thing that people should keep in mind, because sometimes I get queries from people saying that if I go to Germany and I do a project there, then can I stay back? Will I get a job there? I don't think that you should take up the Humboldt with that in mind. Okay? Because German rules and laws are very, very different. Okay? So you have to go there thinking in terms of building up your research career, and not in terms of, and if you're going to ask these sort of questions to your host, you will never get an acceptance in terms of, can I work there? Or what can I do after the project is over? Okay? So I think that has to keep that in mind. I can see that someone was asking me about Arabic. I can't see the question. I've lost that question. Arabic language and literature. You will be amazed at the kind of work that the Germans are doing on South Asia, on the Middle East, okay, on Africa. You have centers for African studies there. Bayreuth is an excellent center. Heidelberg is a center for South Asian studies. Berlin has centers for Middle East. So like I said, go and put in your search words into these search engines, and you will come up with areas in which you can work. Okay? Sanskrit, okay? As I think all of you know, that tremendous work has been done in Germany in Sanskrit literature. I know people are working on Tamil literature there. Okay? So in that sense, it's a global academic environment. Okay? It is not just restricted to disciplines, but what you need to do is you need to do a little bit of homework, okay? And you have a solid project. You just can't write to them saying, I would like to do a project in Sanskrit, or I'd like to do a project in this. Can you help me? You're not going to get a reply.
Ma'am, there was a question maybe asking for some more clarity about this, that the person, Mr. Vishwambhar, says he's a faculty at Government Institute, and whether a government servant can apply.
Mr. Vishwambar, actually the Humboldt will not really, which institute you're coming from, they will assume that you are interested in going there and working at a German university. But since you're working in a government institute, you may have to get clearance from the institute first, okay? Because you will have to be away for 24 months. So that's something you will have to work out. That's something people from aided institutes will have to work out from your side. Okay? They are not really going to ask, are you aided, unaided, self-financed, do you have a full permanent job? They want you to go there, they want you to work on the project that you say that you're working. They are not really going to come back and kind of find out. I can see Sachin indicating time, so 2 minutes. Yes,
so sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Is it the time to wind up?
Yes, I'm so sorry because we are running actually.
So I hand over now all the proceedings to Sachin. I'm sure the session was a really good session for all of us. And I hand over to Sachin for vote of thanks and other proceedings.
Thank you so much, Sangeeta. Thank you.
Welcome, ma'am.
Yeah. So,
Sachin,
yes, ma'am. Yes.
I'll just like to personally thank Professor Mala Panduran. Madam, this is
Thank you.
Shukla from IQAC.
Thank you, Dr. Shukla.
Right?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, Sachin.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. I'm really sorry. I know I acted like the devil's advocate and I stopped. Very interesting interaction that's going on between the participants and the expert. But we have the time restraint and we'll have to follow that. So I take this opportunity to propose vote of thanks. I know it sounds formality, but it is not. It is actually a pleasure to witness, as a guest gathering as this, and when we have like more than 70 participants sticking to this session throughout, especially in the times when the world is shuttling between lockdown and unlockdown. Some of us are here to unlock research possibilities, and I'm very glad that many of you actually made it to this session and helped us to serve the purpose of having such events. I take this opportunity to thank the Honorable Vice Chancellor, University of Mumbai, Professor Suhas Pednekar, and Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor, Professor Ravindra Kulkarni, for always encouraging and giving us encouraging support and guidance. Our thanks are due to Honorable Dean, Faculty of Humanities, Professor Dr. Kharath, for inaugurating the webinar series with his motivating and insightful address. Very special thanks to Professor Dr. Mala Pandurang, with whom I have had the fortune or privilege of knowing her as a scholar in the field of English literary and language studies. And it was an honor. It was actually a privilege to have Professor Dr. Mala Pandurang, for this session. Ma'am, thank you very much for this very insightful, motivating session. And I'm sure many of us will take inspiration from this session and start applying, at least start pondering over the fact like that is required to apply for such fellowships. So ma'am, thank you very much.
Yeah, Sachin, just
Yes.
one, because I can see that there are a couple of more questions. I would just urge the participants to go on to the Humboldt website, and they will find that most of the queries that they are asking has been given in detail as per each category of fellowship. So I'm sure that they will get whatever information they want from the avh.de website.
Thank you, ma'am. And also, I think, as you rightly suggested during your session, that there are various groups, there are, networking, so people could explore this even on Facebook. You will find such communities where a lot of information is exchanged among the members. So I guess like that will also help them to keep themselves update on these fellowships. Thank you. Yeah, a special thanks to all my colleagues from various departments, and I was happy to see my colleagues from humanities, social sciences, natural sciences, from fundamental sciences. Or they made their presence, they asked their questions, and they encouraged us with their kind words. So it's really pleasure to have colleagues in such sessions. So thank you very much, and also all the participants from various colleges, universities, researchers, young and experienced, who've not only participated but also shared their questions. I must thank my colleague Dr. Sangeeta Joshi for moderating the session and keeping the ball rolling, and making it quite live with her questions and cross questions. Sangeeta, thank you very much. Yeah, and we acknowledge and thank Dr. Shrivar Mangai, the IC Director, UCC, for organizing the Zoom link immediately upon request. I know it was a Herculean task because right now we are having carnivals of webinars, and various departments are having international webcasts. It was really a Herculean task for her to steal some time for this webinar series and allow us to use Zoom platform. So thank you, Dr. Shrivar Mangai. Also, I mean, my colleague, Dr. Smita Shukla, she wouldn't really like me to mention this, but it was her encouragement because of which we could have this webinar series. So a big thank you for Dr. Smita Shukla for your support and this entire very vibrant team of students who worked day and night on the flyers and constantly made it a point to attend all the meetings. So be it Parth Salonke or his entire team. So I thank all of you. Thank you once again. And with the permission of Dr. Smita Shukla, I'd like to declare that the session is over. Before that, just a quick request to all of you. Those who have participated in this webinar and who have registered will share the feedback link to your registered email ID. Those of you who have not registered, do not worry. You can just email me, in a sentence or two, and I'll share the feedback link to you. As soon as you share your feedback, you'll also receive the participation certificate. So thank you once again. And tomorrow we will be meeting again at 3:45 for another session that is on Fulbright fellowships. So those of you who have registered may join us, and those who have not registered and wish to join, please do register and join us for the webinar. Once again, thank you very much, Dr. Mala Panduran. Thank you. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Sangeeta.
Sachin, just
Yes,
tomorrow's Zoom link will be different, so that's all. Maybe on the mail also we can mention.
Okay, I would like to say something.
Yes, Dr. Jyotsna.
Yeah, I should thank you really very, very much for taking this initiative, because like, as I said, I was student over in this same university, and it used to be so difficult to know existence about these scholarships, means I remember I really used to struggle. And as you